Accelerating Serverless Development with AWS Application Composer and Code Whisperer, a comprehensive guide. This podcast is brought to you by Business Compass LLC. We are an Amazon Web Services advanced consulting partner. We build and migrate workloads to Amazon Cloud. Our website is businesscompassllc.com. Our phone number is 973-638-2228. Our email address is contact@businesscompassllc.us. Introduction to AWS Application Composer and Code Whisperer. In the rapidly evolving world of cloud computing, building serverless applications is becoming increasingly popular due to its scalability, cost-effectiveness, and ease of management. AWS offers a range of tools to streamline this process, with AWS Application Composer and AWS Code Whisperer standing out as two powerful resources for developers. In this podcast, we'll dive into how these tools can be used to build robust serverless applications, from project creation to deployment and testing. Understanding the capabilities of AWS Application Composer and Code Whisperer. AWS Application Composer is a visual tool that helps developers quickly design and configure serverless applications. It simplifies integrating AWS services like API Gateway, Lambda, and DynamoDB into a cohesive application architecture. On the other hand, AWS Code Whisperer is an AI-powered code completion tool that assists developers by generating code snippets and functions based on natural language prompts or partial code. It's designed to enhance productivity by reducing the time spent writing boilerplate code. Creating projects with AWS Application Composer. Before diving into the specifics of building an application, it's essential to understand how to set up your project with AWS Application Composer. This tool provides a visual interface that allows you to drag and drop components like Lambda functions, API gateways, and DynamoDB tables into your application architecture. Getting started with AWS Application Composer. Creating a new project. Launch AWS Application Composer. Start by accessing AWS Application Composer from the AWS Management Console. Create a new project. Select Create New Project and choose a serverless application template that suits your needs. AWS Application Composer offers various templates to kickstart your project. Name your project, give your project a meaningful name and configure the necessary parameters. Integrating components in AWS Application Composer. Once your project is created, you can begin integrating the necessary components. AWS Application Composer lets you connect services visually, ensuring that your Lambda functions, API gateways, and DynamoDB tables are correctly linked. Add an API gateway. Drag the API gateway component onto the canvas. Add a Lambda function. Drag the Lambda function component and link it to the API gateway. Add a DynamoDB table. Finally, add a DynamoDB table and connect it to your Lambda function to handle data storage. Building the application, adding API gateway, Lambda functions, and DynamoDB tables. Building the serverless application involves configuring each component. For example, API gateway. Define the RESTful endpoints and methods. Lambda functions. Write the code to handle requests. This is where AWS Code Whisperer can be particularly useful. DynamoDB. Set up the table schema and define primary keys. Utilizing AWS Code Whisperer for code generation. AWS Code Whisperer can significantly speed up the development process by generating code snippets based on your requirements. Activate Code Whisperer. Enable AWS Code Whisperer in your IDE. Generate code. Use natural language prompts to instruct Code Whisperer to generate specific code snippets or entire functions. For example, you can ask it to create a Lambda function that interacts with DynamoDB. Refine the code. Review and modify the generated code to fit your application's logic. Enhancing productivity with AWS Code Whisperer. Generating code snippets and functions. AWS Code Whisperer isn't just about speeding up development. It's about enhancing productivity. Generating common code patterns and functions lets developers focus on higher-level logic and application design. Generate reusable functions. Use Code Whisperer to create utility functions that can be reused across different parts of your application. Improve code quality. Leverage the AI's suggestions to ensure best practices are followed, reducing the likelihood of errors. Deploying the serverless application. Once your application is built, the next step is deployment. AWS SAM, Serverless Application Model, simplifies this process by providing a framework for defining serverless applications. Deploying your serverless application using AWS SAM. Package the application. Use the AWS SAM CLI to package your application, which includes compiling your code and creating a deployment package. Deploy the application. Deploy the packaged application to AWS using the SAM CLI. This step involves creating the necessary AWS resources in your account. Testing the serverless application. After deployment, testing your serverless application is crucial to ensure it functions as expected. Testing the API. Interacting with the deployed serverless application. Invoke API endpoints. Use tools like Postman or curl to interact with your API gateway endpoints. Check logs. Review the CloudWatch logs for your Lambda functions to verify they are processing requests correctly. Validate DynamoDB entries. Ensure data is correctly stored and retrieved from DynamoDB. Cleanup and best practices. Cleaning up resources once your testing is complete is essential to avoid unnecessary costs. Ensuring cleanup. Deleting resources to avoid unnecessary costs. Delete the stack. Use AWS SAM or the AWS Management Console to delete the CloudFormation stack created during deployment. This will remove all associated resources. Verify resource deletion. Double-check your AWS account to ensure all resources have been deleted. Conclusion and further learning. Building serverless applications with AWS Application Composer and Code Whisperer is a powerful way to leverage the cloud's full potential. These tools simplify the development process and enhance productivity by automating repetitive tasks. Wrapping up, reflections and next steps for building serverless applications. With AWS Application Composer and Code Whisperer, you can rapidly prototype, build, and deploy serverless applications. As you continue to explore these tools, consider diving deeper into advanced configurations and optimizations to take your applications to the next level. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Please share this podcast, visit our website and follow our social media links.